Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. This is a message for Twin Flame Divine Feminines, or if you don't resonate with that label, it could just be for you if you're looking to work with or balance feminine energies within yourself. So DF, I pulled your cards. We are going to get started. We're playing with a new deck today, which I'm really excited about. But your reading today feels a bit bittersweet, actually. It might be my energy that I'm bringing into the reading today. My moon sign is in Aries, and right now the moon is in Aries. So whenever that happens, I do feel a really strong pull from moon energy. So there could be like some of my energy, like my personal energy coming into this. So it was kind of like an emotional morning for me. But I do feel that is part of the reading. So I feel like that's something that is wanting to be explored a little bit, of bringing your personal and authentic sort of expression or filter or set of experiences into whatever it is that this environment is. And that sort of wanting to be focused on. So as we go through the cards, I am going to talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, that's just a disclaimer, that there is a little bit of like emotionality in this reading today. But I'm embracing it. I'm embracing that, and we'll just see how it goes. So bottom of the deck energy, the context of the reading. We have here the Ace of Voices in the World. So how I'm seeing this is getting some sort of new perspective. It may also be looking back. Looking back on perhaps a specific set of experiences with the Three of Materials coming out next. It could have to do with something like perhaps specific individuals who have helped you to get to this place, right? So for me, I was thinking a lot about my grandfather this morning, who I believe, I'm not sure about this, but I believe that he was an Aries. So there's all of that Aries energy present. So it could have to do with like Aries being the emperor, right? So it could be something like very masculine energy. You could be like thinking about like the structure that masculine energy in general in your life has been playing a part in your development, your growth, or how it is that you got here, right? Like the things that allowed you to grow, the people in your life who allowed you to grow could be coming from a specific masculine, for example. And then we have here the Moon and the Muse of Emotions, right? So these cards are the Moon is such an interesting energy. It's very interesting. It's coming up a lot in your reading. It is talking about emotions as well, but I've also been thinking about like specifically the waves, right? Like the undulations. That's been a word that I've just been seeing everywhere. It's such a strange word, and I've seen it like 3 times in the last like 3 days, which is the strangest thing, I think. Undulation, so moving in waves, right? So our emotional state often moves in that manner where it's not always constant. And I think that there is a lot to be learned in that energy, where it's like if your emotions were always the same, if they never went up and down, life would be extremely boring, right? There would be nothing to it. But it's like the better you get at sort of going with the waves instead of fighting against it, right? Like trying to embrace the undulations, the up and downs, instead of trying to control or try to like artificially dampen, perhaps. But also being aware that if you are not conscious of the up and downs, it can also cause them to become more tumultuous or more, what's the word that I'm looking for? You know what I'm talking about? Like there's more waves, there's more chaos, there's more up and downs. It's much more chaotic. So there's something here about learning how you perhaps manage the up and downs, how you deal with your the moments in your life when you're feeling the low, right? And is there a way to make it, to embrace that feeling rather than trying to dampen or change it? Because dampening your emotions or dampening how you feel, it is a form of almost like not honoring yourself, right? Like if you are feeling low, there is something there that you should honor and accept and embrace, right? But also knowing that you're not meant to stay in that space forever either. There's always going to be an upswing as well. There should be. That should be the natural sort of curve. Like imagine if the moon only ever stayed in the new moon phase and there was no cycle, there was no full moon, right? So that it's kind of like embracing the change, embracing the waves and embracing the ups and downs without making them more severe than they have to be, is kind of how this is feeling. Which is absolutely something that I've learned and embraced recently, because I was very much in my past not connected to my emotions at all. I purposely dampened them down or ignored them, which can cause so much, because it actually can make them more intense when it actually comes time for you to address them, right? So this reading today is just about accepting and honoring the ups and downs, the undulations, the way that the emotional, perhaps, journey takes us. Okay, so we're playing with a new deck today. It's called the Open Portals playing deck, I think it is. So we have these 3 cards here. This one says Portal for the Sunset. Just so lovely. And then this one here, which says God of Life and Death, which is so interesting. So there is a significant transition that's wanting to be talked about in this reading. So it could be in terms of like, it could just be like a new like way of being or something like that. But what's important about this card that I want to bring up, it says Spirit Magic, the Ace of Hearts. And I am going to read from the deck what this or from the guidebook what this says, because I think it's just so beautiful. So it says, Spirit magic flows through the soul. It is the closest thing we have to pure magic. If you pay attention, you'll see that it's around us everywhere. It can change minds, win wars, and move mountains. It is what makes us human and what makes life, which I love so much, because it's all of what I was just talking about, right? Like all of the ups and downs, the things that make us human, and accepting it. It's not always it's not always something that feels good, but there is always that energy of like, after you've cried, for example, there is that sort of cathartic release, right? That's why we enjoy love songs or like sad songs or sad movies, right? Like there is an opportunity for connection there, which I feel like this reading is wanting to discuss and talk about. And so just to further talk about these, so we have this card, the Weightlessness card, which I often describe as feeling like ungrounded, right? So there is that energy there of like, if you are not conscious of your perhaps emotional state and how it changes and how it fluctuates, there could be a feeling of weightlessness, because it's kind of like you're just at the mercy of an energy that you're not in control of, right? So there's that aspect. There could be something like that. But what's coming out next is, like, if you notice the hands, right? It's kind of just like, but there is also, I want to say, a freedom and surrendering that happens in this state. Like, if you are sort of just going with the waves, there is freedom in that, a certain amount of freedom, but it's only if, like, you accept that there is freedom in releasing control. That could also just be my own thing as well, because my moon is in Aries. Aries is all about control, right? What's in your control and what's not. And there could be also things about like anyways, I'm gonna leave that there. Anyways, so the next card out here is friction, which I find so interesting with the hands, because weightlessness and friction are entirely opposite energies. I'm seeing this weightlessness as being like in a place of no gravity, right? If you ever seen the videos of astronauts in no gravity, they just float around. There's nothing to sort of anchor them down. Whereas friction is the opposite of that. Friction allows us to move forward. There's a stability, or almost perhaps even stagnancy, that comes with friction. And so this I'm seeing as being like the ups and downs. There's times when we feel like there's no movement, but then there's also times when it feels like we're floating, right? Like, so there's this sort of balance between these things, but I do feel that this is actually, there is a transition. So it could be if you're feeling low, right? Like if you're feeling low, you may be going on the upswing. If you're feeling like high as a kite, there may be sort of a balancing energy to come in to sort of ground you, right? So there's that kind of transition that's happening depending on where you are now. It's just a reminder that everything is temporary. That's kind of what this reading is talking about. And as I'm saying that, there's the sun is like just shining through the window right now. Like yesterday, there was this huge winter storm. So everything outside right now is covered in snow, which is like in the storm. When you're in the storm, there is almost like a sense of like dread, or just like fear, or just, a closing in kind of energy. But today, once the storm's over, it's like it's almost like peacefully beautiful. Like there's something so beautiful about seeing all the snow on the trees. So it's all of this bittersweetness that's coming through. And then forgiveness here, just to tie this part off, it's talking about like forgiveness is such positive energy, right? To forgive someone, or to forgive yourself, or to be forgiven. But that the positivity comes from the fact that in the past there was pain, there was something hurtful, that or like there was harm done, right? Which means that like this is the other side of the difficulty, is kind of what this reading is talking about. So that's just the overall context. We're gonna get into like what the actual, like what's the current energy. So you have these beautiful cards. The first one is the cleanse, which is all of that undulation, right? The flow energy, how things go up and down. I was also seeing this today as being sort of like a cup half full or cup half empty kind of energy. It just depends on your perspective and where you are. Your cup could be filling up, right? Or it could be draining. It could be depending on what your perspective is. I feel like for this reading today, it doesn't matter, is what it's saying. It doesn't matter which perspective you're coming from, because there will be always a point, like that energy is always temporary, is kind of what it's feeling. You're always going to be in one of those two states. And so it's kind of, because that's just the natural way that it goes, right? So there's something here about, with this card here, the inner balance, which I love because it just looks like more water. Could be also just because I did all 3 water signs this week, so I just am very much tuned into that sort of energy right now. But this card is about inner balance, right? It's that no matter what's going on internally, you can always sort of maintain some sort of baseline, right? Even if you are low, you know that it's going to come up at some point. You just have to like sort of ride the waves. That's what's coming in here. And then you have here comfort and authentic expression, which I love, because look at all this energy here, the blue and the pink coming together in these 2 cards. I love my deck so much. It's anyways, so I love this. So the comfort, right? So for me, like, I put on my most comfiest sweater, the one that just makes me feel warm and cozy, because of this energy that I've been feeling. It could be coping mechanisms, right? But that doesn't have to be a negative thing. it becomes negative if the coping mechanism is sort of the dominant thing. It's like you can't be present without the coping mechanism. Does that make sense? So comfort is absolutely not a bad thing, but in all things, it's about moderation. It's not a dependency, right? But anyways, so that's the current energy. It's like finding peace or finding ways to bring perhaps comfort if you are in a place of feeling low or half cup, half empty kind of energy, because it is going to fill up again is what I want to say about that. But with this Prism card, which I love so much, which is really interesting because there is a tier there, right? So how I'm seeing this, because thinking about like rainbows, right? You need the water, you need the rain in order for a rainbow to happen, but you only get the rainbow when the sunlight shines in that environment. So it's like if you just constantly have rain, if there's like a prolonged period of rain, that's not a natural flow, is kind of how that's feeling. So if there's like perhaps depression, right? That's a prolonged period of rain. That's not, there's, it needs to swing back up at some point is kind of how I'm seeing this. And as someone who has gone through depression, I absolutely know like how that feels. It's difficult to see any sort of sunlight in that environment. It's, and that's when sort of like talking through it could be helpful, or, I mean, it depends on every person's situation. I don't want to generalize into like how that is feeling for anyone. But there is perhaps here in this energy, I feel like there is something coming in if you are in that state that is going to help bring clarity into the situation, is what this is talking about. I'm not saying that anyone in who's watching this is in a period of prolonged sadness, perhaps, but because it's coming out with the cleanse card and the authentic expression and comfort, I'm seeing very much it's more of like an acceptance or embracing of any sort of emotion, even if it's a negative or lower energy emotion, knowing that that is part of an authentic expression, right? It's like pain and sadness absolutely provides a lens in which to gain perspective on a certain aspect of your life. That's my personal opinion. If you don't agree, that's fine. But it's talking about the fact that in embracing difficulty, right? Difficulty in any form, there's an authenticity in that, because how you approach or address challenges reveals something about your truth or your core, right? And that's being emphasized here with this card. So it's called Portal for the Light Giver, which I will show you here. 10 of Diamonds. Portal for the Light Giver. It talks about like the light from within coming out. So it is sort of connecting with your true self, your the core of who you are, and absolutely sadness is part of it. The things that make you sad, the things that cause you pain is part of who you are, because that reveals what it is that you care about. So for example, like thinking about my grandfather this morning, very significant figure in my life, right? He was my father figure who raised me and taught me about life. Sorry, so this is okay, so so the light giver, this is it, that becomes a part of who we are, and that allows us to also bring light into our environments, right? Because Because pain, difficulty, and loss absolutely shapes who we are. It's kind of how I'm seeing it and how I'm going to leave it. So, but what the next card is, you have here the God of Stars, the Queen of Diamonds, which I really love. So this is talking about clarity, right? It's like, this is the energy of the sun shining through the rainbow, or the clouds, or the raindrops, in order to provide light. And it because it's coming through with the rainbows, right? There's this interesting, because this portal of prisms actually came out. This is for the extended, but I'm going to mention it here briefly because I love when these sort of synchronicities happen. Portal of prisms and the prisms, and this was talking about the fact that rainbows are illusions, right? So, but all of this sort of interpretation is, rather than use the word illusion, I would say an impression or an interpretation. This is the specific way in which I view my experiences and how I choose to share them, right? That's what this is talking about. And that brings a certain amount of clarity for you as the viewer of who I am as a person, who I am as a reader, but also shares my specific perspective on life and that kind of thing. So I feel like it's like, if you are experiencing pain or loss or sadness, or going through just a period of low emotions or confusion, perhaps even, it could just be confusion, or just like feeling unmotivated, perhaps, is kind of, or just feeling perhaps disheartened, or all of that sort of quote unquote low vibrational energy. That's part of your authentic expression, and that there is absolutely something within that energy that reveals a truth about who you are and your perspectives and your core beingness, or like the specific gifts that you have in order to bring light into situations so that others can also benefit from your experiences. And that's what this card is coming out, the ideation card, which talks about like having a new idea, and that's being emphasized here with this portal for the spark, which is talking about like some sort of new thing coming from an energy where there was perhaps pain or darkness or sadness or loneliness or whatever it is. There's something here that's being created from that energy, right? Like it's just like an ember, right? You light a fire because it's dark. You need the darkness in order for you to discover the warmth of fire, right? There's all of that in your energy today, which I am feeling as a very beautiful kind of experience. And I know that if you are feeling like sort of sad or depressed or whatever it is, it's very difficult to hear that message. I know that. I absolutely know that. And I'm not saying that anybody should force themselves into an energy of positivity, because that can be like a toxic positivity trait. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you are willing to accept this period of darkness that you may be in, there is the potential, if you're open to it, some sort of spark or fire to be gained from this experience. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it there. If you don't agree with me, that's totally fine. Okay. I'm gonna skip, well, no, I'm gonna talk about these two cards, because you have here the Two of Emotions and the Four of Emotions. So this could be in relation to your partnership, right? So if the twin flame connection, it doesn't have to be though. It could just be, because it's kind of feeling, again, with all of this sort of water, and then like the cup that's half empty or half full, depending on how you see it. There's this energy here of like wishing that you had the cup full, right? Because this is all submerged in water. So if you're talking about the partnership, it doesn't have to be though. I want to sort of take it away from, or like remove it from that energy, just because there's so much in this that could, anyway. So wishing for your cup to be full, but right now it's at like a half empty kind of perspective, right? That's what this energy is talking about. So of course with the Four of Cups, it comes with the energy of like, you're focusing on the things that are immediately present in your environment, but what you're not seeing is that your cup is actually overflowing, right? There's the Ace of Cups here in your environment, but it's like not seeing that because you're focused on perhaps the physical manifestation of what's around you, right? You're not in physical union, or you're not, whatever it is, whatever state of being that you wish you were in, it's not here yet, and yet it is, right? There's this Two of Cups energy is absolutely around you already, or always has been there, but it's because there's a perspective of having your cup half empty that it's not breaking through to you, is kind of how this is feeling. So it could be that there's something here with the Knight of Voices and the Ten of Voices coming out next, right? The Ten of Voices talks about all of this sort of heavy rain, dark night of the soul, all of this energy. But then the Knight of Voices is like freedom from that. So it could be, I often see this as being sort of like an outside energy coming in to sort of shed light or provide insight, or it could, but I feel like today it's very much just like an inner truth kind of epiphany or eureka moment, but it's all of this energy of like the sun breaking through the clouds, right? It's what, because as I was saying with the rainbows, this is the rain aspect, which you absolutely need for a rainbow. And then this is the sun coming in, because if you look at this, it's sort of like an upside down prism. So it's like the sun is coming in order to shed light on whatever the situation is, and it's going to provide some sort of rainbow, which could mean so many things, right? The rainbow symbolism, I'm coming, like it's feeling very much like if you if you are familiar with the Bible, the story of Noah, right? The flood, the 40-year flood, all of this water, the 40-year flood that absolutely destroyed the earth, right? But the rainbow was a sign from God, from source, however you want to phrase it, that God would never do that to the earth again. It's a sign of a covenant, right? A covenant between God and man, I guess, or God and earth, that sort of destructive energy would not be inflicted upon the earth again. So there's something about here where if it is that you were feeling in this energy of low things, or like a dark night of the soul, or any sort of pain or heartbreak or whatever it is, that it's almost like there's something coming in here with the Knight of Voices that is almost like a covenant or promise that you're not gonna feel like this again, perhaps. Okay, and then here, what's next? You have the Ace of Materials, the Ace of Voices, right? This is the energy of like land again after the 40-year flood, coming up for air. All of this water is draining. And then here, the Ten of Emotions. Do I need to explain this? I feel like it's like a new start, right? Absolutely. Because there's so much energy, the context of the reading, there's a lot of like the life and death, right? The sunset, something coming to an end. But what I feel like what's coming to an end is this Ten of Voices energy, right? Anything that's sort of stuckness, right? Sadness, loneliness, pain, heartache, all of that's within the Ten of Swords, right? So that's the energy that's coming to an end. And what you have next is this rainbow covenant kind of new start energy with the emotional fulfillment. Because these are the two opposites that you have to experience. The dark night of the soul versus emotional fulfillment, the happiest that you've ever been, that kind of thing. So there's this dynamic here of like, you need both. Both are part of the experience of being human. This is the spirit magic. This is the thing that moves us. It's if you were always in this state, the 10 of emotions, you almost wouldn't know what that is. It wouldn't be, because you need this experience in order to know what this is, right? I've been talking about that a lot recently. It's just, it's talking about that life is like that, but it could be like that as well if you're not conscious of it. So the more that you can get your life to be a bit more smooth and not this, if that makes sense, the more peaceful your experience will be, is kind of how I'm gonna leave it. So I hope that reading it made sense. I hope no one was offended by my interpretations of emotion. But if you are, that's fine too. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to move to the extended. We're going to talk about what's something else that you can focus on in this situation or this dynamic. If you're interested in that, the link for that is in the description box. I do have other videos if you want to check those out. If this message resonated with you, please consider subscribing, liking, leaving a comment down below. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.